Native Americans, a fascinating people made up of many tribes, were the inhabitants of the United States before modern white colonists arrived.
Native Americans create America's first democracy that later inspires the United States Constitution.
We're still here.
Today, there remains mystery surrounding where they came from, who else they met on American soil, and more.
In various Native American traditions, we have different spiritual beings located on these sort of different planes of existence.
Like many societies, much of the history of these tribes is being told through photographs. Join us as we show some interesting, rare photos of Native Americans that were discovered over the years. Marilyn meets Matthias Joe. This photograph captures an unlikely 1953 encounter between two dynamic personalities, separated by culture, yet sharing universal qualities. When Hollywood superstar Marilyn Monroe came to coastal Vancouver for filming, local Quatsino Chief Matthias Joe, vestured in traditional regalia, respectfully welcomed her in the ceremony as an honored guest. Monroe's glamour and celebrity status captivated global audiences, while Chief Matthias upheld his Kwakiutl community's cultural arts and values through potlatch gatherings prohibited until recent decades. Despite divergent backgrounds, the two trailblazers won wide acclaim and popularity upholding tribal heritage and First Nations rights over their lives and lands. Though gone, Matthias's legacy continues inspiring indigenous boys and girls to rediscover pride and skills in rituals like ceremonial dancing that lingered underground during his youth. Likewise, Monroe's singular fame is emblematic of both realizing one's dreams and seeking substance over illusion. This photo signifies the humanity and magic enduring beyond the camera flash when open minds allow cross-cultural sharing. Oglala Lakota Showman. This portrait offers a stirring glimpse into the final days of famed Oglala war leader and performer Long Wolf as he traveled with Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, popularizing but also exploiting fading Native heritage through staged reenactments. Long Wolf's journey spanned the spectrum of Pine Ridge's losing struggle to retain homelands and way of life during the Plains Indian Wars. From his youth, he fought in Red Cloud's War, and later followed Crazy Horse's vision of resistance over reservation confinement. But by age 50, Long Wolf's reality mirrored the manifold other chiefs and warriors, touring curiosities divorced from true Native context through Buffalo Bill's spectacle. During a London performance in 1892, Long Wolf fell ill and died in the city, to lie restively apart from ancestors' soil and ocean's breadth away. But his indomitable visage and constancy to the Oglala Nation now stirs future generations to reclaim their destiny on grounds still stalked by the watchful ghosts of Wounded Knee and Sioux's storied ghosts unbowed through a century of survival no showman's slight can diminish. Sioux, urchins, boy, and girl. This 1880 studio portrait provides a rare glimpse into the enduring bonds of a Native family, resilient amidst the tumultuous waves of change sweeping the western frontier. The unidentified Sioux sister and brother strike a poignant pose, adorned in a blend of traditional and assimilated attire. The boy, with long flowing hair, dons a cloth shirt, trousers, and moccasins, while gripping a bow and arrow. The girl is dressed in a cloth gown, beaded leggings, a bead necklace, a hair pipe choker, and beaded moccasins. The vintage negative number serves as a testament to this captivating moment frozen in time. Captured by photographer Huffman, this image crystallizes the Sioux's struggle against the backdrop of harsh land cessations and forced relocations from their mountain valleys to reservations. Yet their innocence beams through time's fading emulsion, belying the coming decades of deprivation, straining ancestral lifeways as the shadows of modernity engulfed generations. All tribes felt ravaged by expanding American industry and settlement, but natives experienced parallel turmoil, even settling in their homelands. Kahatika Girl. This image of a little girl from the indigenous Kahatika tribe was snapped by photographer Edward S. Curtis during one of his expeditions documenting the lives of Native American peoples in the early 20th century. The Kahatika belonged to a larger tribal confederation called the Pima, residing near the Gila River in Arizona. According to Curtis's account, The Pima tribes were once embroiled in a brutal conflict with the Apache people, their fierce rivals. After suffering a devastating defeat, the Pima scattered from their settlements, later reforming into smaller independent factions like the Kahatika. Though few in number today, the Kahatika's ancestral history is deeply rooted in the Sonoran Desert, with some ruins indicating their presence dating back over 1,000 years. The tribes were well adapted to the harsh desert climate, constructing canals and irrigation systems to sustain their agriculture. This image offers a poignant glimpse into the world of a young Kahatika girl, proudly representing the enduring legacy of her people. Though the Apache uprising splintered the greater Pima civilization, groups like the Kahatika held onto their distinctive identity and tribal heritage across the generations. Comanche warriors. This later 1860s image conveys both symbol and reality from the Apex era, when Comanche horsemen dominated their nominal allies and enemies alike across the southern plains. Attired in mixed tribal regalia, long breechclouts, and trademark Comanche moccasins, these warriors wield lances, signifying the martial mastery, granting nomadic bands near complete command over the Llano Estacado and Edwards Plateau deeply into Mexico. Even other formidable groups lived in legitimate fear of these hunters, raiders, and traders who fully integrated horses and European weapons into a flexible berserk battle tactic no opposing force could withstand. At their zenith, marginal Spanish towns in Nueva Vizcaya scarcely survived Comanche raids launched from the high Buffalo Plains and mountain vastness, offering tactical refuge and advantage equivalent to Genghis Khan's mobile Mongol hordes sweeping from Asia into Europe centuries before. Nampeyo. Posing for her portrait, the accomplished Hopi woman seen here goes by the name Nampeyo, meaning snake that does not bite. Though deceiving in appearance, her talents held immense venom, not as a predator, but as transforming raw desert clays into stunning works of pottery mastery. The Hopi have resided on remote mesas in northeastern Arizona for over 1,000 years, developing one of the most sophisticated Native American art traditions across the Southwest. From youth, girls learn the techniques of forming vessels from local soils, firing patterns with baked agave, and applying symbolic Hopi iconography using brushes from chewed yucca. Few came close to rivaling Nampeyo's expressive pieces, combining elegant symmetry with flowing naturalistic style. Collectors clamored for her creations even during her era. In appreciation of such examples showcasing the pinnacle of native craftsmanship, her 1909 pot sold at auction for over $350,000 in today's currency. Though long past, Nampeyo's legacy still inspires the continuing Hopi pottery tradition, renewed with fresh visions from each generation of artists across the desert lands she knew, where every work connects back through their fired earthen veins. Kootenai Water Journey. This scene captures two Native Americans aboard a wooden canoe, preparing to cast off across the still mountain waters before them. From their minimal dress and gear, they appear to be members of the Kootenai tribes. Their ancestral lands centered around the towering peaks and lush valleys cutting through modern-day western Montana near Flathead Lake. The Kootenai culture revered the beauty and spirit of their alpine home as gifts from the Creator. Their oral histories describe guardian spirits called Shee from the mists, who guided ancient tribal members to sites imbued with healing magic or visions. Leaders known as Shma sought spiritual powers through wilderness quests. As depicted here, Kootenai also crafted sturdy vessels, allowing travel across the many lakes and rivers sustaining their villages. None can say what sacred mission or mundane task prompted this crossing captured in time, but the Kootenai infused their livelihood upon these waters with faith in forces beyond the shimmering reflection, blinding our centuries' alien eyes. Zuni farmer. Zuni people have continuously occupied the same remote nook of western New Mexico for over 4,000 years, centered in the Zuni River Valley tucked amidst an arid but mineral-rich pocket of the American Southwest. Early Spanish explorers noted the Zuni as exceptional farmers, creatively manipulating the challenging landscape through floodwater diversion and agriculture integrated with natural cycles of seasonal rainfall. Their stewardship mastered nourishing a 1,000-year civilization in delicate balance upon this brittle, high desert habitat. In this photo, we see a man from the Zuni tribe who appears to have been returning home after a long day. Today, many still practice the ancient dryland farming customs on reservation allotments of tribal trust lands, keeping an age-old lifeline flowing through blood memory and fragile seed stock resilient as stone. Alaskan traveler. This image is quite a historical one. Here we see a hunter paddling a boat in what is now known as Kotzebue, Alaska. The exact origins and tribe of this man are unknown, but most probably, according to researchers, he comes from the Inupiat, an Eskimo Aleut-speaking people who have lived in the region for thousands of years. The Inupiat comprise one of the oldest and largest Native American settlements. At its height, the Inupiat nation was said to have been made up of hundreds of villages with tens of thousands of members. Apache mother. This photograph pictures a Native American woman of likely Apache heritage, cradling an infant swaddled in traditional garb. Such wrapped papoose carriers allowed tribal mothers to securely transport their babies as they went about their daily tasks. Though the subject's identity remains uncertain, her beaded clothing and jewelry are indicative of the southwestern Apache tribes. Throughout the 1800s, these formidable desert warriors fiercely resisted American expansion into their traditional lands. Despite facing relentless military campaigns, Apache bands like the Chiricahua refused to surrender, staging daring raids and vanishing into the harsh Sonoran landscape. Their elusive tactics frustrated federal troops for decades. Though ultimately forced onto reservations, Apache pride and warrior values still endure in their culture. This anonymous woman's tranquil maternal image belies the tempestuous history of her resilient people. Princess Angeline. This antique portrait depicts Princess Angeline, the eldest daughter of Chief Seattle, the famous leader for whom the city of Seattle was named. Inheriting high status, Princess Angeline was part of the Duwamish and Suquamish tribes that inhabited the lush forests and marine environments surrounding Puget Sound long before white settlers arrived. But Angeline made her defining mark later, as increasing numbers of colonists poured onto her people's land after the 1850s. When conflict erupted between an alliance of natives and encroaching townsfolk, Princess Angeline sent a messenger canoe under cover of night to warn the Seattle residents, saving numerous lives. Her courageous act calmed hostilities on both sides. As one of the last survivors of the area's original natives, she became an iconic and tragic figure, left wandering a city named for her father, where strangers claimed her tribe's ancestral lands block by block. Kiowa tribe? This image captures a gathering of men from the fearsome Kiowa nation around the turn of the last century. They stand garbed in full traditional dress, blending simplistic leather and hide vestments with elaborate feather headdresses, signifying their credentials as warriors of the southern plains. Originally hunter-gatherers, the Kiowa migrated from present-day Montana, arriving around the 1700s in what is now Colorado and Kansas. There, they rapidly integrated horses into their iconic mobile lifestyle, becoming dominant nomads and buffalo hunters, ranging from the Platte River down through western Texas. As American settlements pushed westward, the Kiowa reputation as unrelenting fighters both protected and imperiled their lands, sparking cycles of resistance and reconciliation. Having suffered stinging losses, chiefs reluctantly led their people through the reservation era, pressed by expanding railroads and ranching ventures, though bands in Oklahoma today still seek to uphold their sovereignty. This image immortalizes the bygone legacy of the Kiowa's storied plains warriors, vanished as summer storms, but lightning echoes through the lineage of their children's children winding still across the sagebrush landscape. Mother and child. Few documented details exist about this antique photo beyond the self-evident. It captures a beautiful moment of a Native American mother cradling her young child astride her back, wrapped close against the buffeting winds of changing seasons. Yet universal humanity resonates through their eyes, meeting the camera lens from across more than a century of faded monochromes. Past or future matters not to their tireless eyes, piercing through veils draped over truths lingering unchanged as this land's enduring song beneath their moccasined feet. Wishram Salmon People. Native American fishermen, pole in hand, work the rushing currents of the majestic Columbia River featured in this image from the early 20th century. He hails from the Wishram, a small people dwelling in carved-out village pockets tucked between roaring rapids, slicing through the towering gorge country separating modern Washington and Oregon. That realm remains the unconquered domain of the salmon, though the Wishram, as much as any human inhabitants, can claim their birthright there. For over 10,000 years, the Wishram and neighboring tribes like the Wasco have centrally defined their culture around stewarding the river's seasonal salmon runs. Elaborate wooden weirs and basket traps aided harvests, smoked and traded far outside the dense evergreen valleys framing their world. Though inundated in the 1930s by massive hydroelectric dams submerging their permanent homes, the Wishram's unique language and traditions persist today, still flowing through blood ties rooted profoundly to the Columbia's earlier wild torrents echoing through legend. Acoma Man. In this image we see a man from the Acoma Pueblo tribe, likely a chief or other high-ranking member. The Acoma tribe historically settled west of Albuquerque, New Mexico, with their village consisting of 4 communities, many still located close to the expansive Albuquerque metropolitan area today. In fact, the Acoma Pueblo village is listed as a National Historic Landmark, with much of its architecture preserved and intact. According to surveys, there are less than 5,000 people in the United States who identify with the Acoma tribe. They have consistently occupied their lands for centuries, making the area one of the oldest continuously inhabited communities in the United States. Though now connected to the modern world with electricity, enduring traditions remain. From etchings of sacred petroglyphs to the autumn harvest celebration feast named for their martyred Catholic patron Saint Stephen, Acoma culture still clings to this mesa through uncounted generations, testing sanity and subsistence high above the windswept valley far below their feet. Siksika Warrior. This seated Native American elder presents him as a decorated battle chieftain of the Siksika, one of 4 tribal groups forming the legendary Blackfoot Confederacy, dominating the northern plains and valleys, stretching from central Alberta down into Montana along the eastern slopes of the Rockies Front Range. For centuries, the Blackfoot reigned, leveraging advantage as select bands acquired horses, allowing revolutionary expansion of their buffalo hunts and fierce defense of their territories against both encroaching tribal rivals like the Cree and early Canadian explorers. Leaders like Crowfoot of the Siksika signed pivotal treaties as the buffalo herds waned, ultimately establishing reserves around Calgary and Edmonton during the late 1800s. Though those vibrant epics of highly structured traditional plains culture collapsed in confinement and increasing modernity, through oral history dances and memorial reenactments, new generations still celebrate touchstones to their warrior past, just as vibrantly as the vermilion and ochre pigments decorating robes and legends of yore. Navajo Blessing Way Chanter. This image offers a glimpse into the spiritual customs held deeply across tribal lands worldwide. A Navajo gentleman wears a mask depicting a deity central to Navajo mythology. The Navajo people now comprise the largest federally recognized tribe, but their old ways persist on remote stretches of desert, spanning parts of Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. From stories of divine heroes battling monsters to herding sheep amongst sandstone arches, their intricate cultural traditions stem from a spiritual relationship with the stark yet beautiful painted desert homeland. Ritual songs, colorful woven rugs, silverwork, and the secrets of sacred healing still surround Navajo life. According to mythology, the 8-day ritual summons the gods' divine power to restore harmony and well-being through intricate dances, sand paintings, offerings, and chants. The deity's mask moves through 4 sacred colors from dusk, dawn, darkness, and daylight, symbolically representing the squaring of the circle of time and knowledge to restore order from chaos. Though few outside sanctified Hogan meeting rooms still witness the full ancient 9-night ceremony, Through contemporary medicine singers scattered across reservation chapters and urban communities, the blessings of deities still offer curing pathways for the Navajo people, lingering from the gripped fever dream of history into sanctuaries of cool evening breezes, whispering sacred chants numbering the stars. Jicarilla Girl. This portrait offers a rare glimpse into the bygone world of the Jicarilla Apache, one of many bands of southwestern native hunters and gatherers swept aside by advancing American settlement. The unidentified young woman wears a traditional deerskin cloak decorated with symbolic patterns representing phases of the moon. From their rugged pastoral homeland carved between the Sangre de Cristo Mountains and the San Juan River of northern New Mexico, Jicarilla clans followed seasonal migration chasing deer, elk, and buffalo herds. Their mobility allowed some groups more temporary accommodation on reservation lands when confined. But though swept aside, Apache values and matriarchal lineage systems still underpin Jicarilla identity, as this proud hunter's direct gaze reminds us across time. Her people's name derives from the Spanish term for little basket maker, referencing craft skills handed down from mother to daughter across centuries. So while details fade through fading photographs, her legacy persists in baskets weaving connections between past and future generations, scattered like seeds to sprout new lifeways from fertile native soil. Cheyenne Lady. From a backdrop conveying her people's storied prairie landscape in the late 19th century, this unknown Cheyenne woman confronts the camera with stoic, penetrating eyes. The Cheyenne, a prominent Native American tribe of the North American plains, spoke the Algonquian language and occupied diverse territories encompassing the Platte and Arkansas rivers during the 19th century. After a conflict with another tribe led to the destruction of their ancestral home, they resettled along the Missouri River. Renowned for their prowess in hunting and pottery, the Cheyenne left an enduring mark on Native American history. As tribes saw warriors fall attempting to defend their homelands, women grew increasingly important maintaining cultural practices the U.S. sought to eliminate. Their quilled dresses and handed-down epic histories taught to future generations endured governmental suppression. This image of the lady captured by Edward Curtis exudes dignified strength and the penetrating wisdom of Cheyenne oral tradition, intimating how her relatives survived Sand Creek's carnage, evaded forced migration to ever-shrinking reservations as warriors fought on, and sparked the revival nurturing today's vibrant customs. Just as the Great Plains environment shaped them, Cheyenne's identity now blossoms anew by awakening the old ways dormant in exile. Through this imposing lady's resilience from antiquity, her nation finds rebirth and continuity. Siksika Elder's braided hair. This portrait captures Bear Bull, an esteemed elder and guardian among Canada's Siksika band during the mid-1920s. His intricately braided and tied hair stands testament to the complex traditional Plains culture that thrived in vibrant color until conquest and confinement unraveled sacred Blackfoot ways. The distinctive vertical knotted crest signifies his ceremonial role in safeguarding a beaver medicine bundle holding sacred items used in rituals to heal his tribe. Despite crushing blows against their land-based buffalo culture and kinship bonds across the previous decades of colonial expansion, Bear Bull's sacred trust and dynastic braids wordlessly convey the Blackfoot's determined continuation. In him, the unbroken stream of their historic icons like war leader Crowfoot seems to manifest, undefeated by deprivation and forces beyond control. Throughout the inertia and rootlessness of reservation life, these traditions flowing from ancestral wisdom survived awake inside the hearts of their culture bearers. Crow Sisters Ride. In 1901, the esteemed Fred E. Miller, celebrated for his prowess in documentary photography, captured a compelling image titled Sisters. This photograph artfully showcases the bond between two sisters, Whistler and Hits the One Who Rides the Gray Horse, on the Crow Reservation. Miller's lens skillfully immortalizes the essence of Native American peoples in this captivating portrayal. Through sustained acts of tribal sovereignty and stewarding of language, cultural memory, and homeland sites for new generations, Today, the crows flourish as their forebears could scarcely imagine. No matter the frame boundaries, these bold sisters ride fluidly between old ways and new, upon a continuum of women nurturing future crow generations, likewise telling their own distinct stories. Showman Iron White Man. A dramatically posed studio image from Buffalo Bill's famous spectacle showcases Oglala Lakota performer, Iron White Man, astride a painted horse in full war bonnet and beaded regalia accenting his chiseled physique. Leaving Pine Ridge's deprivations after the 1890 Wounded Knee Massacre and drawn by chance at wider prospects, he represented the native archetype in staged reenactments romanticizing Manifest Destiny's march evicting his ancestors from cherished homelands. Perhaps a tinge of melancholy lurks behind his expression, contemplating 18 defeated chiefs interred miles away while playing courageous warrior upon demand. Still, earning income and acclaim through celebrating Lakota heritage offered the paradoxical opportunity to bridge cultures. Like counterpart Lone Wolf breathing his last oceans away, the Plains way of life that defined Iron White Man vanished swiftly as the lost generation's core. But through the osmotic diffusion of their transitional sojourns, they pioneered enduring native identity fusing old through new to empower descendants proclaiming, "We are still here," in defiance of expectations. Wherever circling winds might guide, their spirits ride blazing trails into America's tapestry of diversity. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. When looking back at the rare photos of Native Americans that were discovered over the years, most of the female attire consisted of skirts, blouses, cloaks, scarves, leggings, and moccasins. A good example is the traditional Navajo dress, handcrafted from woven wool or cotton, dyed in earthy hues, consisting of two rectangular pieces of fabric sewn together at the sides and shoulders, leaving openings for the arms and head. These iconic dresses were typically accessorized with belts, jewelry, and moccasins. However, this particular image offers a unique perspective. Instead of the customary native garb we expect to see in historical photos, this woman dons attire resembling modern-day swimwear. Her fashion choice appears markedly out of place given the era. It makes one wonder, was she trying to challenge stereotypical notions of how indigenous women should dress? What are your thoughts on Native American fashion and what stories these rare photos may tell? Share your thoughts in the comments. Shoshoni family. At the dawn of the 20th century, a Native American family of 4 agrees to pose formally outside their wickiup dwelling on southern Idaho's Fort Hall Reservation in this archived photograph. Their attire blending Victorian trade goods like glass beads with moccasins and patterned blankets epitomizes the hybrid adaptation also framing their inner lives. As descendants of famed guide Sacagawea now confined miles north of her Lemhi Shoshone band's lost Salmon River home, they lived between worlds. Their Fort Hall Nez Perce and displaced Shoshone kin dealt with governmental rations and missionary influences, further eroding generational bonds to land and culture. Yet as these anonymous matriarchs' eyes demonstrate, their connection to ancestry remains firm as the stones upholding their wickiup through endless seasons. Like the mythic coyote trickster, the Shoshone spirit survives despite the most destructive trials imaginable. As long as their language echoes through sagebrush-scented dreams and children safeguard oral histories, they thrive unbroken as the river flows on. The wandering journey begun by Sacagawea and carried through blood memory never ends while their people's hearts still drum ancient cadences of belonging here. Cheyenne Matriarch. Stately pose and attire conveying her elder status, this native Cheyenne woman stands framed by tipi lodges in a 1920s reservation camp, clutching her carved herald staff denoting wisdom and connection to tribal heritage over decades of hardship since frontier times. She may have witnessed the horrors of 1864's Sand Creek Massacre firsthand, survived exile to what became Oklahoma, and now guided children through alien customs at Carlisle boarding school, erasing Cheyenne's identity from memory. Her refined dress, scarf, and beads reflect feminine tribal artistry from the buffalo robe era adapting to new reality. Through the woman's proud yet weary gaze, we glimpse the inner fire fueling the continuation of Cheyenne's ways, now through smoke dance lodges, summer powwows, and fierce retention of language bringing meaning to their world's shifting elements. She bridges past magnificence and guarded hopes awaiting her descendants along unpredictable new trails. As long as memory and discipline flow an elder's staff downstream to eager young hands, the people endure their destiny. Her sharp eyes pierce the veil between worlds, and she remarks, "Still we rise." Oglala Lady. Donning refined European dress, adorned by beaded moccasins and jewelry, this unidentified Pine Ridge Oglala woman posed for her portrait photographer around 1900, when cultural constraints pressed hard from all directions. Reservation life strained her Lakota people through confinement and desperation. Some eased temporarily by performing in spectacles like Buffalo Bill's Wild West shows or Frontier Days meltdowns. Meanwhile, intensive campaigns targeted Native identity itself, restricting sacred language, customs, and autonomy. Yet this subject projects boldness, lifting her people then as now from the abyss. Perhaps she survived Wounded Knee's tragedy as an infant, only to withstand more trauma as the 20th century unfolded. Maybe she cradled and taught traditional ways to her children through story and example as others fell to lingering hardship and illness, even finding renewed purpose as Lakota fought for civil rights by the 1970s. However briefly captured in her era's fading photograph, she stands timeless through her nation's endurance, a paradigm of womanhood's perseverance. Tlingit art. Tlingit tribe used to wear attire featuring stylized animal motifs and crested headgear, indicative of the elaborate artistry traditions surrounding the cultures of the Pacific Northwest coast. The geometric designs suggest origins among the Tlingit Nation, centered around the frigid coastal forests of southern Alaska. The environment provided the Tlingit with abundant natural resources, allowing substantial settlements and a complex social hierarchy focused on family ties and clans. Their most famous artworks came in the form of carved totem poles and embellished garments like ceremonial Chilkat blankets. The vivid iconography often depicts crests representing family lineage or symbolic tribal history. This subject's attire demonstrates the sophisticated aesthetics still maintained as a proud marker of Tlingit heritage. While some elements, like the Western-style footwear, reveal adaptation to modern influences at its core, this image reflects the deep creative roots clinging to the ancient rainforests and glaciers of Alaska. Brenda Shad. Though separated from her tribal homelands, iconic native model Brenda Shad kept her heritage alive by representing indigenous beauty and tradition within the modern fashion industry. With ancestry rooted in the matrilineal customs of the Cherokee Nation and Chickasaw Nation of Oklahoma, she worked international runways and bridged into Hollywood cinema during the 1990s to 2000. But beyond the studio lights, Shad's success highlighted the enduring influence and creativity of native arts passed down by ancestral hands since before colonization and expulsion along the trail where they cried, which forced the southeastern tribes' march to Oklahoma reservation lands. Through masterfully incorporating cultural elements like beadwork and meaningful prints with contemporary couture, she elegantly amplified voices too long excluded from American identity. The gap between traditional homelands and 20th century realities fades, viewing Shad proudly bearing the mantle of legacies, both pre-colonial and modern, simultaneously upon her runway catwalk trails, illuminating hopeful new horizons for her people. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.